Diet plans, to me, has or comes, in two different aspects, right? Which is, diet plans are always either too rigid or just too cookie cutter, right? It's always going to be one of the two, right? And I'm going to kind of break down each one for you and show you why. Because of these two factors, it hardly ever works, right? And even when it works, it's mostly short term, right? It's mostly short term. So coming back to what I started saying about diet plans being either too rigid or too cookie cutter, right? Let's start with being too rigid. So what happens is you would find a lot of diet plans would require you to take on a big shift and a big change, right? In the way you eat, right? As far as like what you eat, what time you eat, and all the other things that comes along with it. And it's just like a quick shift, right? If you've been eating a certain way for 10, 20 years, you can't just override those habits and patterns in 8 weeks, right? It's gonna be tough to override those habits and patterns, right? In a few weeks. Most people can't just quit something cold turkey, right? So you're gonna have to walk yourself through the process of weaning yourself off of those habits, right? So that's the first issue with diet plans, that they're too rigid, right? And they too demanding and requires too much of you too fast. So what happens a lot of times is people just become discouraged. When the demand is too high, people become discouraged and fall away from it altogether, right? The other part of the diet thing, which is the cookie cutter part, is the fact that a lot of diet plans don't take into consideration that people are different, right? People have different makeup physiologically, right? People are different, right? So what works for you may not work for me. And this is what I mean by cookie cutter, right? It's just a one-size-fits-all type of approach, most diet plans. And if you think about that, even logically, that could never work, right? It could never work. And that's one of the main reasons diet plans keep failing, right? Because, people get on these diet plans without sometimes even knowing their blood types, right? Without being able to pin down what types of foods affect them in what way, and what types of foods is really making them put on weight, and things like that, right? And for some people, what may make you put on weight may not make me put on weight. You know what I'm saying? What may affect your digestion may not affect my digestion, right? So when you go on a diet plan that's just designed for anybody, right, to try to lose weight, you're gonna run into problems. You're gonna run into sometimes serious problems, right? So you wanna instead of going on a diet plan, what I always encourage people to do is take time to figure out your body. Take time to figure out yourself. And this is where most people fail, because people don't invest in themselves personally, don't invest time in trying to figure out how their bodies work, right? And it's really a simple process. It isn't hard at all. It's a simple process. You have to try to figure out, what makes you put on size, right? And what types of foods may slow your digestion down. What types of foods, right, may cause you to put on weight in the midsection, and so on and so forth, right? You have to try to figure these things out in order to make the changes that will be effective for you, right? So you just have to develop a strategy for yourself, right? That's all you need, a strategy that works for you. And it's gonna take some investing in yourself, right? And understanding what works for you, right? Now, there are some general things that you need to keep in mind, right? When you're trying to lose weight, right? There are some general things that's kind of across the board, right? It works for everyone, and it's kind of the rule of thumb, right? There are a few things, one of which is you want to be burning more calories than you're taking in, right? And that's on a day-to-day basis, right? You want to make sure that you're not taking in too many calories and you're not burning it off, right? So that's one of the general things that you want to keep in mind, right? Another thing you want to keep in mind is a lot of times, people hear, you have to cut out fats and you have to cut out salts and you have to cut out, and they just go crazy cutting stuff out of their diets, right? And for instance, I'll give you an example. Like recently, this guy asked me, he was like, because I was telling him, he was asking me some of the things that I eat on a daily basis. And when I mentioned like nuts and stuff, like almond nuts and pistachios and stuff like that, he asked me, was like, but aren't nuts high in fats and stuff? So he didn't even know that the fat that nuts contains are healthy fats, right? He didn't know that. And this is what happens to people. People just hear that they need to cut out fats and salts and stuff, and they just go cutting everything out. And this is where you can run into problems as far as like with your health, right? Like I remember some time back, a friend of mine told me that she was on this 500 calorie diet. And I had to tell her, you have to be careful, right, when you go on these types of diets. My advice to her was, look, you have to make sure that you're getting the nutrients from your food, right? And a lot of times, when you go on a 500 calorie diet, you're not eating enough different food groups to get that 500 calories, right? And you may be missing out on certain nutrients that your body needs. So, for instance, like I was talking about the fat, you need healthy fats, right? Your brain functions in fat, right? So you need healthy fats in order to function properly. Your body needs salt, right? You need salt to function properly, right? Your body needs salt, right? So you can't just completely cut out some of these nutrients, right? You just have to figure out getting the healthy versions of them, right? Like carbs, you need carbs for energy, right? But what you need to do is you need to make sure that you're getting healthy carbs, right? And you're cutting out the empty carbs. So, understand what you're doing before you just jump into these things and start cutting stuff out and you really don't understand what you're doing. Because in my experience, man, over the years, I've seen and heard some of the craziest things, that people do trying to lose weight. And the most striking part is that they still struggle to lose the weight. And that should be evidence of the fact that you're doing something wrong, right? And when you look at people who do find success, and I'm talking about lasting success, I'm not talking about people who lose weight for a year and then after a year they experience weight gain rebound, and they regain the weight and stuff like that. You know, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who lost the weight and it stayed off, right, permanently. People like that are people who took the time to learn themselves, and they slowly made changes, right? They slowly made changes, you know, slowly got rid of the bad stuff and slowly replaced it with the good stuff. And that's how you approach it, right? Don't try to do everything all at once. Don't try to make these huge changes all at once, right? Like I always tell people, if you drink 4 sodas a day and you want to try cutting out sodas, what you need to do is try drinking 3 sodas a day for a week or 2, and then cut it down to 2 sodas, right? After you do that for a week or 2. And you keep doing that until you can completely drop the habit, right? So it's just small changes. Small changes makes a big difference, right? Small changes makes a big difference, right? And a lot of times big changes makes a small difference. So, you know, you want to be able to experience lasting results. And as I was speaking about people who find lasting success with losing weight, another thing that people like that do as well is they approach it correctly mentally as well, right? Like they discipline themselves mentally and they stop focusing on just the immediate results, right? And they see it as a long-term journey, right, that will produce results as they continue. And they don't necessarily focus on just the results. You know what I'm saying? How much weight am I losing? It's been 3 weeks and I haven't lost such and such, and driving themselves crazy, right? People who do that struggle with weight loss. The people who just decide, look, this is a journey, I'm gonna just focus on making these changes from a long-term standpoint, and I'm just gonna make these lifestyle changes and I'm just gonna stick to it. People who do that experience greater success than people who just try to make all these quick changes, right? You have to remember that it took you 10, 15, 20 years to gain all that weight, right? And you know, you should at least, you know, be fair with yourself and be like, okay, it took that long for me to put on all this weight, you know, let me at least invest a year, let me invest 2 years to really get to where I want to get to, right? Don't expect it to happen in 4 weeks, right? It took you 15 years, don't expect it to happen in 4 weeks, right? And if it does happen in 4 weeks, that's not good, right? We know that, right? So just take your time, right? And wean yourself off of the bad habits, right? And allow yourself to grow into the healthier habits. That's what has to happen. It's not magic, you know what I'm saying? You know, there's no magic approach or magic pill or magic diet that's gonna just make you, you know, lose all this weight and, you know, fall into your ideal size in a few weeks, right? For some people, sometimes it takes them months and years to get to their ideal weight, but the difference is they're stuck to it. And this is what you have to do, right? So this is my advice to you, man. You're trying to lose weight, you know, don't do the diet thing as such. And again, you know, let me just add that diet simply means the way we eat. And this is another thing people confuse. When people hear diet, they think of something sophisticated and something where you know, go on this, you know, special type of eating. And diet simply means the way we eat. And why I said this is to say that it's always going to be about how you eat and what you eat. and that's all it is. And what you need to focus on is cutting out bad stuff, slowly cutting it out, and slowly including the good healthy stuff in your diet, right? That's the approach you're gonna have to take. So I just want to encourage you guys, you know what I'm saying, keep pushing, right? Keep learning, because learning and educating yourself is going to be a big part of how fast you succeed in this process of losing weight, right? Educate yourself. That's the one thing people miss in this journey of losing weight, because people's approach when it comes to losing weight is always this thing of depending on other people. Whatever they say is what I'm gonna do, right? And what I read in this magazine is what I'm gonna, this weight loss magazine, or what this person says is what I'm gonna. What you have to do is, the most effective approach is to educate yourself, learn yourself, right? And take that approach, right? That's gonna yield more success, right, for you. So I'm gonna thank you guys for listening in. Go ahead and like this video. If you're not subscribed on my channel, go ahead and subscribe, right? And share this video, right? To someone who you think might benefit from this information. I want to thank you guys for listening in, and I'll see you guys in the next video.